This is an install video for the remote electric steering for the Newport Vessels NK180 motor. If you've ordered the kit from me, this is what you'll get. You'll get the mount for the actuator, a couple of washers, and the pivot arm assembly. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is install the pivot arm assembly. I'll need the pivot arm assembly and these two washers with the nuts and the bolts. Pivot arm assembly slides in here. If you see these holes on the side, the bolts are going to go right through there. So there's no drilling through the motor mount. You'll see the hole on the washers are offset. We want the bolt closer to the top. Now, before you tighten those bolts, you want to make sure that the whole assembly is as far this way as it will go. And there we go. Now all these parts come unpainted, so if you disassemble it to paint it, just make sure that the right number of washers go back in here, because those are needed for spacing. Next thing we're going to do is install the mount for the actuator. So I'm going to take out these two screws. If you received a bracket that has 4 holes in the bottom, you want to use the holes that are furthest away. That will keep the bracket further away from the motor for the 180 Newport Vessels motor. All right, now that we got the brackets installed, it's time for the actuator. The actuator, here's our actuator. This is one I've already used. You got the eye bolt that was sent to you in here with the washers on top, a single washer on the bottom, and a nut. You want to make sure that that nut is snug, but that this bolt still turns. And on the back of the actuator, quick installation note, you will have to run a 1/4 inch drill bit through this hole in the back of the actuator to get this to fit. Again, we want that nut just up there snug. We want to make sure that that still turns. And then that goes in there. That goes in there. And then on the bottom of the eye bolt, we'll install another nut that we will okay, and on the bottom of the actuator we're going to install one of the nylon lock nut. Like that. Okay, that's all tight. Now, this is where you need your turnbuckles and your clips and your shackles. The shackles, the connection to the motor on the last hole. And the clips are the connection to the pivot arm. Okay. Now, once our pivot arm is straight, Plug that in. We want to adjust these turnbuckles to take up the slack and make sure that our motor is straight. All right, once those are adjusted, now the next thing you need is a way to power this actuator. And I use a remote control. Again, it's one of the items in the list in the YouTube video. And the one thing about the remote control is it is not waterproof. So you need to find somewhere to put it to protect it from the weather. I have mine in a battery box. It's right there. And the power comes out to my actuator through this plug. And I just plug the actuator in when it's time to go. That's how it works. Now, a couple of quick notes. Once you have these turnbuckles adjusted where you want them, and all of these threads, including the threads on the shackle, you want to make sure that those are secured either with Loctite. I personally just put super glue in them once they're adjusted because you shouldn't have to adjust them again. Also, this actuator, this particular one has lasted me about 2 years with some pretty heavy fishing, and the only thing I had to do to waterproof it is remove the screws from the base, pull the base off, and seal all around this base with some automotive gasket sealer. And it's been working fine for me, like I said, for about 2 years.